The 1-900 Wrestling Podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/1900wrestling. Go ahead and join the exclusive Discord that you get. It's the best place to watch live wrestling. No big old packed Facebook group where you got to scream and yell. There's a bunch of idiots trying to get attention. This is the place to be. Patreon.com/1900wrestling. But enough of talking about how we support the show. What do you say we just go ahead and do the damn thing?
I want you to call me for all of wrestling's latest news and views. I've been around in wrestling for 35 years, and nobody knows wrestling like me. Remember the number one.
Oh, here we go. I screwed up. Hey, everybody, it's 1-900 Wrestling. My name is Justin Robert Young. We have a great show. We have a huge show. We have an amazing show. But joining me, as always, is Willie Dills Gregory. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited. I'm in the kind of last couple days of stress before you have to go somewhere. So you know that part kind of sucks, but I know it'll all work out once Thursday comes around and I'm on a plane and I'm heading out to San Francisco to see not only New Japan G1 Special but also Hood Slam, which I still have not been to.
Well, I'll tell you what. We are going to talk about that. Surely, while we were here, we'll probably do some extra bonus content. But today we are going to focus primarily on the New Japan Pro Wrestling Special that happens this Saturday live, I think, on Access. It is going to be a huge event, so we had to bring out the big guns. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, making his 1-900 Wrestling debut, Aubrey Sitterson.
Yeah, me. Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
I think I fucked up the intro because your podcast, Straight Shoot, always had such a high energy introduction that even though it is no longer with us, I felt it's intimidating glare while I set everything up.
No, that's just the lens flare from my window.
Yeah,
the intimidating glare that you're feeling. Yeah, man. Here, I'll tell you my secret. Everybody always said, "Hey, Aubrey, it's really great how you start the show. You've got so much energy." I just scream.
Yeah,
just as soon as the show starts, just start screaming, and it sets the bar high. Appropriately high.
So I have a fun little connection here. I heard about you guys when I worked at Podomatic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, man.
Because when I worked there, I was like, one of my jobs was like community manager. And so I had to kind of keep an eye on what were our biggest shows using our platform. And so but then I specifically also just looked up wrestling shows. So I found you guys pretty quickly. And are you guys still using that service?
Well, Straight Shoot was just me.
Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, is that still what you're using?
Guys, right? No. Well, Straight Shoot came to, I ended the show a few months back.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I used Podomatic all the way through, and I mean, I swear to God, this isn't like a sponsored post or anything.
Sure.
I love Podomatic. Yeah. Podomatic was a really great service, and nice. They had really good analytics that I think a lot of podcast platforms are lacking, probably because I think a lot of podcasters don't really pay attention to that stuff, which is a mistake because they fucking should. But no,
yeah, I agree.
love
that was the biggest selling point of that service, was that you get to see everything down to the details of like, where are people downloading my show, like exactly what links did they find to get there, all that kind of shit. So yeah, that's funny. I haven't been there in about 2.5 years though, so that's why I missed the boat on your show. I don't keep up with the Podomatic world anymore.
I will say this about Straight Shoot. It was one of my favorite wrestling podcasts because not only is Aubrey a great thinker, you are a comic book writer by trade. You got an awesome new wrestling themed project coming up a little bit later this year that hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit about today.
Okay. I got up and grabbed it before I.
There we go. Yeah. So the comic book story of professional wrestling, which you've just been kind of tweeting out in drips and drabs, different illustrations and stills from it. It looks amazing, but I think that's kind of what I like the most about Straight Shoot, was that you always kind of came to it not only from a wrestling fan who's actually here to talk about the art of professional wrestling as opposed to bitch about how popular Roman Reigns is, and as a storyteller, like understanding like what goes into the kind of craft of it, which I think is sorely lacking in this landscape.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That's super kind of you to say. I was talking to somebody about this kind of recently. it's a popular thing to look at wrestling through the lens of whatever your favorite medium is, right? Like people always try, they try and look at it through the lens of Game of Thrones fandom, or they try and analyze like a movie or a novel or whatever, comics, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's definitely kind of where I started with Straight Shoot and with my wrestling fandom specifically. But through doing the show, I don't know, like the one of the biggest things, the biggest macro things that I learned from doing the show was that wrestling is its own beast entirely, right? And and anytime you start from a place of trying to like analyze or critique wrestling through metrics that are commonly applied to another medium, you've already lost the thread. That was a learning process for me to kind of get to that point.
Yeah. Well,
that's interesting. We talk about that a lot here, that it's a sporting event, but it's a television show, but it's a movie, but it's a play, but it's a circus, but it's you know what I mean? So you're like, yeah, there isn't anything else like this. So why am I trying to fit it into a box of something else I'm familiar with? That really makes a lot of sense to me.
For sure. I mean, I think Justin will hopefully will agree with this. I think it'll hit home for him. Man, I think the closest thing, if you want to talk about forms of entertainment, the closest thing you compare wrestling to is Magic. Is a magic show.
Yeah.
Or my favorite, a carnival game, right? It's it's a show. It's a grift, right? But it's a grift that's dependent upon the audience buying into it and wanting to be fooled, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think my favorite high-minded I'm here to talk about pro wrestling at a fancy dinner party explanation is immersive theater, where the people in the ring are pretending to be athletes and the people in the crowd are pretending to be a crowd that is here to cheer a legitimate sporting event, and therein is the artistic tension that kind of creates whatever possibility that you want in pro wrestling, which is why it's kind of the funny thing about pro wrestling is that I don't think that anything you can't really view it through the lens of anything else, and yet you can view everything else in the lens of wrestling, because nothing else lays bare the like, here's a guy, here's why you should be mad, now have this reaction that we're manipulating out of you, which is like the core dirty little secret of everything else on the planet, except with like politics, they lie to you and say that it's for real, whereas at least in wrestling there's a little bit of a tip of the hat.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the artifice, right? And it's all about either hiding the artifice or acknowledging the artifice so as to, obfuscate another aspect of the artifice, right? Like, it's fascinating, and I agree with you. Yeah, it's as I'm sure people listening to 1-900 Wrestling realize, like the more and more you get into wrestling, the more you just become insufferable to all of your friends and family because everything fits into the wrestling rubric,
Well, yeah, everything's either a work or a shoot. Let's be honest. I mean, two types of things that can happen in life.
And the best things are all works, and we need to all acknowledge it.
And I disagree. I would disagree with Dilly's assessment. I would say that there are no shoots. Everything's
everything.
Okay. That's why it's like wrestling, right? Because like even in wrestling, even the shoots you're seeing, they decided that you were going to see those things.
Yes.
Right. So and even when something is a shoot, even when an injury is real, and when somebody actually gets hurt, well, that becomes a work very quickly because the show has to go on, and they absorb all of these actual real elements. Like, I don't know, you can count on one hand probably the things that are actually real and true in wrestling that have made it to the screen, and even those are filtered in such a way and positioned in such a way that they become part of the narrative.
Yeah, or they get replicated, or it gets seized upon, and so therefore it becomes the art and the story in and of itself. All right, well, I'll tell you what, you knew, if you're unaware with Aubrey Sitterson's work on the Straight Shoot, then it is a podcast that once dedicated a full hour episode to a French poem. So we have brought some of that.
It wasn't a poem. It was how dare you?
A French essay. I apologize.
Roland Barthes, the famous French structuralist philosophers. It wasn't a poem. It was an essay.
It was an essay. My apologies. Let's move on to the big
wrestling. It was on wrestling. It's foundational wrestling scholarship. Roland Barthes. Look him up.
Look him up. It's high-minded, it's interesting, and that's why we're here. So thank you for joining the show. We are going to talk a lot about the New Japan show and the card itself, but let's start. We kind of cut short a conversation in the pre-show. You have never been to a wrestling show at the Cow Palace, right, Aubrey?
Never. I've never been to the Cow Palace, period.
Now, Willie, you grew up in San Francisco. How many times have you been to the Cow Palace for anything?
So I actually did go to a wrestling show at the Cow Palace when I was really young, probably like young enough that a lot of it is a blur, right?
Yeah.
I knew Hulk Hogan was there. I knew Big Boss Man was there. Like I remember a few things. I think even at this point, like, man, there was, who else was there? Okay. So there's like, I think at this point, Jake the Snake was still there. You know, like I'm talking, this is early mid 80s ish. And that's how I'm trying to place how old I was. But so that's the only time I've ever seen wrestling there. I've been to gun shows, tattoo shows, rodeos, demolition derbies, all kinds of stuff. Briefly, there was a hockey team that would play there in the Cow Palace for a little bit, but it hasn't really been. First of all, it's kind of out there. There's not a lot near it, right? No. And it's a little bit of a ways to get to the Cow Palace.
How far is it from San Francisco, actually?
I mean, it's still in San Francisco proper. It's,
okay.
Yeah, it's like the very southern part of San Francisco, but you literally will cross over like 2 blocks down from it, and then you will be in, I believe, Colma. Is where you are,
or
actually
Daly City or one of the...
It's Colma, South San Francisco, one of those. It's before Daly City is like a little bit further down the road. Okay. But I only know this because I actually got pulled over once there, and the guy like tried to pull me over before I crossed into San Francisco because I was driving north. But no, so like
were you
there's
bootlegging?
Really nothing there.
Were you getting out of his jurisdiction? What was going on? Did you have the revenuers on your tail?
Getaway. Yeah, I knew if I could just make it 2 more blocks.
Just cross city lines. We're home free.
I just like pull to a stop and get out and just like give him the finger. So there's really nothing else there. There used to be a drive-in movie theater right next door to it.
Oh, really?
And that we used to go to all the time, but it was so run down when I was like a teenager that I was surprised it was there as long as it was. And now there's really just nothing there. And it's a super old building. You'll be surprised when you get there.
Yeah.
Just how everything just looks kind of shitty and run down.
Well,
right?
I like that. I like that in a venue, honestly. I would much prefer, I talked to this. So I used to live in New York, and I tell people all the time, one of the reasons I love going to Dodgers games out here is because it feels like a fucking baseball stadium as opposed to Citi Field, which is like a mall where there's a baseball game going on in the middle of it, right? So yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. And it's one of those, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of those like ancestral homes of wrestling, right? Like that, it used to be a real magnet for, I mean, that was the place in California, really.
Oh yeah,
it was. So yeah, when WWE came through, that was where they were. So like, it was very normal when I saw WWE at the Cow Palace that was just the thing.
Because even before
they still have run a few shows there, but now I think more often they're doing like Oakland Coliseum and stuff, right? When they
or Oracle next door. I think they mostly run Oracle, there, and I'm sure they'll run the new the new stadium once it's built in San Francisco. But the Cow Palace, because even prior to WWE really running it, it was also an independent venue where Pat Patterson was a popular performer. So it's
Justin, you've been there the most recently.
I've been there the most recently, which is funny.
What was the independent show?
APW. APW's now run it twice. I went to both shows. It was very good. But when you walk in, you have this feeling like, oh my God, so much wrestling history has been here. This is the same building where Hogan and Sting wrestled in Starrcade. So in the Golden Age, which is very easy to put yourself in because the building has had almost no renovations since it was a very popular venue back in the 90s, which is now a couple decades ago. So it is very much like wooden floors. The thing that it is most known for that I know just driving around is the Cannabis Cup yearly. So it is an agricultural and trade venue for most of the time. Excellent. Except for now that indie wrestling has sort of had this boom period. APW ran it twice, had good draws. That they did a good job of filling all the floor seats. But this is going to be easily the biggest the biggest thing that is happening there in wrestling in many, 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 many years.
And it's only like a third sold out too, right?
Yeah.
Like there's still like there's and like that's not, I don't say that to like hack on New Japan or whatever, because from what I understand, it's all like they don't need to sell out the whole place to make a ton of money, but like it's I don't know, it's huge.
So
I
let's
guess that's my point.
let's
a
also
massive venue, right?
Let's talk about that a little bit though, because
they list it as far as capacity for a concert, which I think would be the closest to what a wrestling capacity could be, because you're pulling out a lot of like the floor is available, right, for people. For concerts, they listed at 16,500. For a basketball game, it's almost 13,000, and that means for a basketball game, that means you're taking up the entire floor, is no seating at all. So that's only the actual seats around. So I would guess for wrestling, like their capacity is probably somewhere around like 14,000.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're thinking you can fit about 1,000 people onto the floor, you know.
Yeah.
So with a ring there and whatever else, that
entranceways
there's
and
going to be cameras and all that kind of stuff. I've not seen a New Japan setup live. Justin, you've seen that as well, but you saw obviously Wrestle Kingdom, which I'm sure is not going to be the scale we're going to see here.
Yeah, I doubt.
I would think that's their capacity. I would guess that they're probably covering off, like just fencing off some areas essentially, so people can't sit there, and they'd probably not even be trying to sell more than 8,000 or 9,000.
Well,
right?
let's get into that, because this was an interesting way that they have rolled this out, and I think now that we're at this point, a week before the show, it makes a lot more sense than it did a few weeks ago in terms of not announcing the card, or at least a big feature bout as tickets went on sale, since now Kenny Omega is the champion, whereas Okada was the champion at the point where they put everything on sale, and that's the main event, is Kenny versus Cody. But it was also weird because it feels like we are in an odd little awkward expansion phase where New Japan is now coming into America. The rumor is that they have the dojo there in Southern California now. They want to maybe run California as its own little indie territory with some of its up and coming talent. But Aubrey, do you feel like this was a bit of a weird rollout? It happened right around the time that the Long Beach shows were happening. I think there was kind of a feeling from California wrestling fans that, like, all right, well, listen, either just tell me both of these are happening so I can make a decision on where I want to go. But it felt like kind of a bait and switch to some people that, okay, you're going to announce this other bigger show like a week, or I think was it at Strong Style Evolve that they first made the announcement?
I don't remember exactly. I think that might have been where they confirmed it.
Yeah.
It's so there's a few things going on here, right?
Yeah.
as there always are.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that you kind of need to acknowledge and understand about G1 special shows specifically is that, as much as, so first of all, I would say that this isn't a bigger show than the Long Beach show.
Okay.
By a couple of metrics, right? One is just the kind of matches that they've booked. And the card looks really good, and I'm sure we'll talk about it some, but it's a lot of repeats. It's a lot of matches that we've seen before. If not in, even the main event, we've never seen Kenny and Cody for the IWGP title in New Japan, but we sure as shit have seen them for the Ring of Honor title in Ring of Honor, right? That's the thing we saw at WrestleMania weekend. So there's already they're not giving away exciting matches in this event, right?
Yeah.
So already it kind of takes a hit because of that. But also, if you look at the timing of this thing, it's a G1 special. It's right before the G1, which is the longest, most grueling tour of the New Japan calendar year, and they need to keep these guys healthy. That's why you've got Naito and Okada, Evil, Sonata. You got all these big names on the card, but they're not in singles matches, which
tag
is what
matches.
I don't know. Most people want to see. They're in the tag matches, which is the New Japan strategy to kind of get everybody on the card, but keep people healthy for the stuff that matters. I mean, at the end of the day, this event doesn't really matter, right?
No.
Like even the Long Beach show, like I made the joke to people that, and I've been to all the Long Beach shows and I loved them and I had a blast, but I made the joke to people, especially at this last one, because there wasn't even the U.S. title tournament going on. Especially at this last one, I called it a Long Beach Prefecture Gymnasium show, right? Because it felt like one of those kind of like lower tier. It felt like a house show. It felt like a New Japan house show, and I think that this is kind of the same thing. As for, so I don't think it's so much a bait and switch, but I think that people who look at these American shows as, oh, like trying to compare it to Dominion or Sakura Genesis or Power Struggle, or choose a New Japan show. People who try and compare it to those are bound to be disappointed because New Japan doesn't treat it like that for understandable reasons, I think.
And well, here, let me ask you this, Willie. Do you feel happy with the card that got announced? Because part of it was like, look, this is a big building, and there are some exciting possibilities for at least people that aren't New Japan regulars that they had talked about bringing in, like Rey Mysterio Jr., Chris Jericho is the Intercontinental Champion right now after beating Naito. Either of those guys, big American stars, big American draws, are not on the card. Do you feel like it's maybe missing a little bit off the fastball?
Well, okay. The only thing that's really disappointing to me is just the no Jericho thing, because I would have liked to have seen Jericho show up at this show. Outside of that, though, I think a lot of this is what I expected. I mean, like you mentioned, the tag match it's a strategy New Japan uses to kind of like put storylines on hold a little bit, but still it builds the ring experience these guys have against each other. They're still very much the factions against the factions, so there's still some element of that going on. But there's not, okay, this is an individual storyline we're telling. This is part of a feud between specific guys. It's more just like, we want to see some good wrestling, faction v faction, get them all out there so we can all watch Okada come to the ring. We all get to see Naito come to the ring, all that kind of stuff. I didn't expect more than, I mean, I didn't know that it was going to be Kenny Cody, obviously, 2 months ago or whatever. I thought maybe we'd see Okada, Omega, which obviously would be sweet. But I mean, that would be like the fifth one of those. I don't know. All of this is okay to me. All this is kind of like what I expected. And then Jericho is like the one thing where I'm like, that would have been sweet. But
that's exactly how I feel. It's gonna be great. Like I'm gonna have a blast at this thing. But I certainly wouldn't describe it as an exceptionally great New Japan card. Right? Like even though looking down the card, it's got a ton of matches that I'm sure are just going to be bangers.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, I mean, so talk about like, it would have been the fifth time we've seen Okada Omega. This is probably the 50th time people have seen Hiromu versus Dragon Lee.
Sure,
and like I'm sure it's going to be great, but like there's nothing new or exciting about that match, you know?
That's absolutely true. I guess this though really does speak to what New Japan's strategy is, which is not, go all in on becoming a huge American promotion. Like dabble, test the waters, but we're still saving our big stuff for our big shows in Japan.
Well, I think the other thing that's interesting about New Japan's position right now, right, in terms of branching out into America, which I find to be like a fascinating meta narrative of New Japan right now, because New Japan is doing what every promotion has always done, right? And what WWE used to do all the time, but no one has really done to WWE in the way that New Japan is right now. And what I mean by that is they're running shows in someone else's territory, right? They came to America and started running shows here, which is not it's not their yard, right? And furthermore, they by creating the United States title, this is my favorite thing because it really is, it's like an old school fuck you to WWE, and like you could maybe even see it as like an old school fuck you to like American fans, because this is what WWE is always. This is what WWE does with like the British stuff they're doing now too. Is they come in and say, listen, whatever you've got going on here is not as important as this secondary or tertiary title in our promotion.
Yeah,
right. And I think that's fascinating, and it's really cool. Like it's a cool old territory move, right? But I think along with that, New Japan's struggle right now is the struggle that, WWE, for all the negative things people say about WWE, and there are a lot of them you can say, one of the things that WWE is great at is catering to a dozen different types of fans, right? Multiple types of audiences. And New Japan is going to have to figure out how to navigate this because, there are Aubrey type fans who watch stuff through New Japan World. So they see it like the morning afterwards with their cup of coffee, right? But then I think probably the larger portion of New Japan fans, like actual New Japan fans, are people who watch things on Access, which means they're getting it like 3 or 4 months later, and they're only getting like cherry-picked matches. They're not getting the full thing. And then in addition to that, if New Japan really wants to make hay in America and start and start getting audience there, they really need to siphon off people who know of New Japan and know of New Japan talent through Ring of Honor. Yeah. Right. And so these are three very distinctly different types of wrestling fans who want not just different types of matches, but more importantly, they want different talent. You know, like there are names that mean more to these people. You know, so I think by way of example, you know, like I'm always disappointed with these shows that like Minoru Suzuki doesn't have a big 40-minute singles match, because I love Minoru Suzuki, but I recognize that people who watch the Access show, people who know of New Japan by the talent that comes over and wrestles in Ring of Honor, they probably don't give a hoot about Minoru Suzuki. So it becomes it's a balancing act for them to build these cards, you know?
Well, although there is a little bit more of a financial reason for them to care about the American audience, the new CEO, Harold Meij, came out and said that there are currently 100,000 subscribers to New Japan World, and 40,000 of them are outside the United States. But I would presume that the healthy majority of that is English-speaking people from America, considering how big this market is. So that's interesting. It's interesting that they do want to run here. It's interesting that they are putting not only foreigners on top of these cards, but on top of their promotion. I mean, Omega's the IWGP champion. We have the Young Bucks as the heavyweight tag team champions. And we have a U.S. title that is bouncing around non-U.S. citizens.
Two non-Japanese wrestlers going at it. Yeah. That's Jay White and Juice Robinson, right? So
yeah. Yep. So here, let's go ahead and get into the card. It is going to be Tag Match Central here for a while. If you're not familiar with New Japan, this is kind of the way they do it. This is our opener. Yoshihashi, Geto, Rocco Romero, Sho and Yo versus the Bullet Club as represented by Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp, Chase Owens, and Haku.
Yeah,
in action.
Very 60 years old is going to be there.
I'll tell you what, I don't care. He could be dead and I wouldn't fuck with Haku. That is
terrifying. Terrifying.
That is somebody that even in the little iPhone video that they did to promote it, I'm like, he's a legitimate problem. Like at any moment, at any time, at any age, he will bite your face off.
The one guy is the guy who comes out with the hot ladies, right?
That is
Takahashi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Tokyo Pimp
in real life.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Like, I think every match on this card is gonna be really fun. I think the thing, you know, Haku is the big draw in that match, right? Yeah. But I'll tell you what, especially after having watched the Best of the Super Juniors, my dude to watch in this match is Sho. Shock Arrow, Sho. He's part of Roppongi 3K. I think Yo is great too. But Sho's been putting on a lot of mass. He does a lot of like really great power moves, and he does this gnarly kind of like package pile driver thing as its finisher. It's called the Shock Arrow. And just bodacious German suplexes. So like for me, watching that match, the thing I'm going to be waiting for is for Sho to get the hot tag and just clear house. Yeah. That's what I'm going to be aching for.
So are they still doing, I don't watch a lot of like, I basically go through kind of the big boys when it comes to New Japan. So I'm not watching like the weekly content and all that kind of stuff. Are they still doing a lot of matches where Rocky is heavily involved with Roppongi 3K, like where he's doing 6-man tags with them, or?
Yeah,
because I've seen them a bunch, but I haven't seen them with him recently.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, he's still their manager. Okay. I mean, like he wasn't involved when they were doing all the Best of Super Junior stuff because they were in separate blocks and they were both competing separately. But yeah, man, I think they still do pretty frequently get him involved for 6-mans and stuff like that.
Yeah, because the last match that I really cared about with these guys was the Young Bucks when they did the whole thing with the hurt backs.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
The Matt Jackson wounded back storyline lasted for 5 months. It was great.
It went forever. Yeah, and that's I'll tell you what, to me, the most fascinating story in wrestling. And there was a little thing that got hot on Reddit today with Kevin Sullivan talking about the relative draws between when Ring of Honor goes to Chicago and when, you know, this All In event is coming to Chicago, that it seems like when the Young Bucks and Cody are booking from their YouTube channel, people really, really want to go see it almost more than these established name brands. But that is, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get closer to the top of the card, but the being the elite phenomenon and how much that has driven ticket sales and excitement for that all in event is just insane. All right, but we'll get to that a little bit higher because we got another great match: Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano versus Suzuki Gun, Minoru Suzuki, and Zack Sabre Jr. I love this Suzuki Zack Sabre Jr. tag team. It is like it fills in everything that kind of, not to say that Zack Sabre Jr. is not a fantastic performer. I love him, but it is just this next level thing when you add the raw brutality of Minoru Suzuki. It just legitimizes some of the, I don't know, more processy sort of like British wrestling elements to have just like the bruising element of Minoru Suzuki alongside of him.
I think this is going to be my match of the night.
Really?
I'm gonna call it right now. I think this is gonna be my favorite match. It's a match I've seen before, so that that gives lie to what I was saying earlier about I've seen all these. But no, man, I love the dynamic between those two. Suzuki and Sabre are two of my favorite singles wrestlers in anywhere right now. But just as much as that, I think Toru Yano is a genius. I think that guy is phenomenal. I think he brings so much. He brings something to these New Japan matches that I think is crucial, and it's missing a lot of the times. It's a sense of humor. But he does it, and I'm not the biggest comedy wrestling fan, but what I love about Toru Yano is that guy is always trying to win, and the way he builds around to all the bits that we know he's going to do, right? Grabbing the hair and pulling it, the low blows, untying the thing, like ducking underneath the clotheslines, like all those bits. He builds to them in such an organic way that it never feels like a guy just coming out and doing like his clown routine for you. And then when you throw in Ishii, who is just this bowling ball of a human being, right? Who just takes absurd amounts of punishment. And he's the tough guy. It's like the perfect type of odd couple relationship between those guys. I can't wait for this match.
This one's going to be great.
It's going to be fun. Like the fun thing about Zack Sabre to me too is watching this guy with the slightest, weirdest build always like try to compete with these bigger guys. And he just looks so awkward out there, but somehow it kind of works. I don't know. It's very weird. His style is weird to me. But it's super entertaining.
It's going to be amazing. All right. The Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kushida versus, speaking of being the elite, Hangman Page and Marty Scurll. I felt last year that this year was going to kind of be Hangman Page's coming out party year. And I don't think it's in any fault of his own, aside from just, there's only so many people at the top. There's only so many big, exciting things that can happen at one time. But I'm still holding on to that ticket. I still think that by the end of 2018, we're going to be talking about Hangman Page being ready to take, another step and either hold a title or be competing in the heavyweights. But I'm pumped.
He's in the G1. He's in the G1 this year, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah. So that's probably going to be.
That'll be where he breaks out. I love Hangman Page, man. I think though, like that guy's he's gotten a lot bigger. He gets better every single time I see him. I'm glad. I'm happy with how they've been pacing out his build though, because I think he works best in these tag matches. He works best when he can get tagged in, all of a sudden just be a beast and do like the flipping clothesline and the shooting star press to the floor and like do all these great spots. Because when he is in these singles matches, I don't know if he's quite ready to be at the top of the card yet. Like I really liked his match against Jay White at. I ended up liking his match against Jay White at the Long Beach show. But it took a while, and they were not well served by their spot on the card either. Because I think they went right before the Golden Lovers and like after, I don't know, something else that just fucking tore the house down. I don't know. Like, I think this is a strength of, it's both the strength of New Japan and it's also kind of the weakness of New Japan, is that everything, all the booking is very, very conservative. And they take it real slow. And, like, I think that Okada Omega is a perfect example of that, right? Nobody was surprised by that, but it was just where things were logically headed to. And I think that with Hangman, the build has been, tag matches and looking better and better inside these tag matches. And then he'll be in the G1 this year. And either he'll be a breakout star or he won't. Like, that'll be the proving ground for him.
Well, I also think that if you look at the history of New Japan, and specifically the foreigners in New Japan, the white guys, they're always, I feel like New Japan has to have a white guy in the chamber at all times, just in case the other white guys at the top of the card leave, as they have been wont to do as New Japan has continued to progress. So I feel like if at any time anybody above Hangman Page decides to take that WWE check or something like that, that's where he kind of funnels into. But meanwhile, I'm also really bummed to see what kind of reaction Tanahashi gets here in the Cow Palace. He's such a tradition, and a part of what you're going to see is just the like, oh, look at me, I'm at a New Japan show. Then the moment that Tanahashi comes out has to be a big fun celebration.
Sure.
At the Long Beach shows, people went bananas for that guy. The dude I'm most excited about in this match, though, is Kushida. Kushida, I think, is awesome. The best wrestler in New Japan, regardless of weight class. I think that guy, if he's in a singles match on a card, it's going to be the best match of the night. And it's been that case for years now. So I'm thrilled for any chance to see him. Although I'm disappointed. I would have loved to see him in a singles match. That's kind of the bummer of a lot of these matches, I think.
Are these guys considered chaos, or they're like not in a stable?
Tanahashi and Kushida are not in chaos. They are part of like just kind of like the amorphous traditionalist good guy faction, right? So sometimes they're Taguchi Japan if Taguchi is there with them or whatever, but no, they're definitely not chaos.
Well, I think
it's kind of funny because you start thinking about it all as just these three factions, right? But there's actually a lot more going on.
Well,
it's why I need to start watching a bunch of stuff just to get caught up before I get there on Thursday.
It was funny because I was watching. They had a little commercial for their Fire Pro a game. And they announced all the guys that aren't in factions as part of the New Japan main block.
Okay. The main block.
There are guys. There are guys.
Here are the guys. And then the Bullet Club.
Main block shirts made.
They follow the rules. They love the company. They love the fans. They're here to entertain you. I like that. They're just squeaky clean, babyface good guys.
Never open weight champion Hiroki Goto defending against Jeff Cobb. Now, Cobb, if you're talking about hometown favorites, none will probably be more tied to the Bay Area than Jeff Cobb, who regularly works APW, which also ran the Cow Palace shows. He is definitely a favorite with the crowd up here. This should be.
He was in the World Tag League this past year too, in New Japan.
Yeah, with Sorry, what was that? Elgin, yeah. Oh, Jesus, yeah. Awesome. All right. IWGP Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, defending against Evil and Sonata. Talk about the run it back strategy. They just won it off Evil and Sonata at Sakura Genesis a few weeks ago. Now back on American soil. All right. Let me ask you this, Aubrey. Mm-hmm. If a title is going to change hands, is this in your likelihood of a title changing hands? Otherwise,
you're asking what like the most likely one. The to change
most
hands
likely.
Is?
Give me one possible title changing hands. Here are the matches: the tag team championship, the WGP Junior Heavyweight, the United States Heavyweight, and of course the Heavyweight Championship.
If I had to make a bet, if I had to make a wager, I would say that they all stay around the champion's waist, except the United States heavyweight title. I think the smart move is to put that baby on Juice. I think Juice is super fucking over. I think American fans who are New Japan fans now, probably a lot of them remember that guy as CJ Parker in NXT, and they're probably super stoked to see that guy getting the attention that he deserves because he's amazing. He is an American, and I think that he would be the first American to actually hold that title.
He would be.
Right? Because it was Kenny and then it was Jay White, and Jay White's a Kiwi. I think that, I don't know, to me, that seems like the obvious smart thing to do, to have this big, fun celebration of Juice Robinson becoming IWGP United States champion.
I 100% agree. And also, I feel like Jay White, somebody that I think is very much deserving of the spot he has. I don't want to take anything away from him, but I do think he is still a developing character. Like he is I think still finding himself a little bit. it would do him well, I feel like, to have a big moment kind of go against him and then to see him progress from there.
Yeah, I think Jay White is really good, but I don't think he has like the same natural charisma that a guy like Juice does. Juice comes out and he's just screaming and wearing like his weird, crazy, like part Dusty Rhodes, part Brutus the Barber Beefcake outfit that he wears now, and just like screaming into the headsets about fucking after the show. It's impossible not to like Juice Robinson right now. But yeah, I think that Jay has. I mean, in his defense, he hasn't really been given a whole lot to work with.
Yeah.
You know, like he won it off of Kenny, which is awesome and really shocking and really cool. And then he had it felt like it was just never ending, this feud with David Finlay. And it didn't really serve either of them that well, I don't think. Just because it always just felt kind of perfunctory. I would love to see Juice win the title off of Jay.
I think it's also weird to see an emo guy who likes to cut himself as the champion. I kind of prefer to see him as like the guy trying, like always being held back a little bit, and he's got something to whine about. But when he's the champion, it's like the character doesn't make as much sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Here is where you jam a bunch of talent into one match, but you don't want to do a tag match. The former champion, the Rainmaker, Okada, versus Will Ospreay. This is a tag match. My mistake. Chaos versus LIJ. Okada and Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito and Bushi.
There's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance before any wrestling happens in this one.
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of Naito laying down, Tranquilo and Okada in his pants, Ospreay being Ospreay. This is just going to be super fun.
Here's what
I don't really care what happens here. I'm just really excited to see all these guys in the ring.
I am super excited for this because when my wife and I went to go see Wrestle Kingdom in January, there was no man, I think, not only in that building, but in Japan, more popular than Naito. Naito was the man of the hour, to the point where the air escaped out of that building when Okada beat him.
You could tell watching it, man. You could feel it. You could feel the energy go out of the room.
It was the first time I've ever seen a wrestling event in Japan. It was one of those things where you don't realize. Everybody always says, "Oh, the crowd is quiet. The crowd's quiet." They are, but it's a ramp. It's just one of those things where it's less likely to have these rapid fluctuations like there are in American or British wrestling, where something can get so worked up that then the next match is left less. It's like the crowd instinctively wants to save the biggest reactions for the biggest matches on the card. And man, was that there? And then the crowd didn't get what they want. So I'm curious to see how the Cow Palace reacts to Naito.
Yeah, me too, man. Especially so Naito is one of my favorite. LIJ are my favorite stable in wrestling. Number one with a bullet right now, maybe ever, honestly. Just because all five of them are so good and so cool and so different from each other, but also from anybody else wrestling. I'll be really interested though, because I wonder if this is we were talking earlier about kind of like the different segments of New Japan fans, and I wonder if maybe this is a New Japan World fan kind of opinion to have. And I because he hasn't had the push that Okada has, right? He certainly hasn't had the exposure that an Omega has in this country. So I wonder, especially in light of Omega's comments, like last week, I guess. Did you read that stuff? I'm not in the Omega is a racist who was talking bad about the domestic talent camp. I think that is a extraordinary stretch. What I think is fascinating about them, though, is when he explained this stuff and he said, listen, I don't think Naito is the guy, because if you're trying to do an international push, Naito with his Tranquilo thing speaks to a very specific thing within Japan of people working like 14, 50-hour days, and they just need to calm down and they just need to slow down and stop. And I found that fascinating, because Tranquilo is Spanish. And that came from Mexico. Like first of all, it's not even Japanese in origin. But second of all, because I don't know, man, everybody anecdotal evidence, but everybody I know is nuts for Naito, nuts for him. And furthermore, if we're talking about like cultural like possibilities of like cultural impact, man, I don't know. Maybe this is just, again, people I know, but I feel like everybody in America could stand a tranquilo a little bit too.
Yes.
Right.
I was just about to say that. I think that's an American value that's very much people like want to say, oh, like lazy or something. Everybody I know is bragging about how busy they are at all times. That is all people want to talk about.
Well, and also I think it speaks to if we're looking at this era of professional wrestling as being special, right? And I think the numbers sort of back that up. He, almost more than anybody but Nakamura, I think, speak to this very unique, very Japanese, like you can feel, even though I don't know Japanese culture, I can feel that they are counterculture to it. Like there is an energy to it that is very kind of unique.
And this is the other thing about like the Omega comments too, right? It's like Omega actually points this out. He says, "Oh, he's like this Stone Cold Steve Austin character," and then goes on to tell us why he won't be popular in America after just comparing him to the most popular wrestler ever
of all time. Right? Yeah.
So I mean, my hunch is, we talked about it earlier, everything's a work, right? Like I think that's 100% Omega laying the groundwork for the Naito feud that we're gonna get inevitably with him.
Yeah.
But still, like I do find it a fascinating thing to watch, just to see whether Naito is as popular as he is in Japan and whether he's more popular than Okada in this match.
I think he might be. I mean, I think that for the crowd that wants to come out, that is often going to cheer whoever they want because you feel kind of removed from the product a little bit. I think that's going to be the case. But either way,
I think in a Bay Area crowd, Naito is definitely
Bay Area. Listen, Bay Area is tranquilo.
Yeah, we like to be a little tranquilo.
Dude, I think that's another great point. Like there are a lot. I mean, for people listening at home who might not be aware, there are a lot of Hispanic individuals in California.
Yeah, as it turns out,
it might be news to you, but no. And so there are a lot of folks who are Los Ingobernables fans, whether de Japón or not de Japón.
Yeah,
I assume in America we're still going to have most of the crowd in Bullet Club shirts, but I'm going to guess that LIJ is like.
I think that they will be. Yeah, I mean, listen, it is a wrestling event in America. There will be
look for me in my LIJ shirt at the show.
Sweet. I'm gonna be wearing my New Japan. What do they call it? Something block, house block, home block.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah. New Japan main block. Where's my New Japan main block T-shirt?
Yeah, main block. I'm going to get that shirt made just for me.
All right, we are kind of running up against it time-wise. So we mentioned Takahashi versus Dragon Lee. I think it's going to be a fantastic match, but it is something that we've seen a lot. So let's get to Kenny Okada versus Cody Rhodes. We did see this in Ring of Honor. And talk about a match that did not get the proper spot on the card. It went before Marty Scurll and Dalton Castle because that was for the Ring of Honor World title,
right?
Which really? I didn't watch that full show. I only watched that match. Really?
Yeah.
This match was kind of like for the Bullet Club leadership type of thing, right? This is when he accidentally hit.
This is when the Young Bucks kicked. Yeah, and this on the Being the Elite that was released literally just before we started doing this show. Cody got angry and said, "Hey, look, I know that you tried to kick me. You missed. If you try to kick me again, you're gonna miss again. So don't choose wrong." It's being built. I mean, this is one of those Being the Elite feuds that obviously drives ticket sales. It obviously drives fan interest. Anybody who's going to be a New Japan World subscriber probably understands what this is. I'm curious to see what happens. Obviously, I don't think that they're going to take as much as it would. I love Kenny Omega, but right now, Cody Rhodes is just maybe my favorite thing in wrestling in the past forever. He is just every inch of the piece of shit that is actually kind of getting things done and shaking things up and reframing what the structure of a wrestling show, or at least his wrestling matches, should be, or what you should expect. So I would assume that there'll be some kind of thing that happens that furthers wherever they're going, be it to All In or be it to Wrestle Kingdom or something going further. But I don't necessarily think. I think it would be a tremendous long shot if Omega dropped the title.
Cody actually pulls this one off. Yeah.
I don't see him winning it. I don't see him winning it, man. Like Omega, like If it was WWE, for sure, because they ping pong the titles back and forth, and that's not a judgment call. It's just the difference in these promotions. Kenny just got this title. It's his first reign. I don't see it. And also, dude, Cody isn't. Cody wrestles a lot in New Japan, but Cody's not a New Japan talent.
No.
Like he mostly wrestles other places. So, I don't see the title changing hands. But I'll tell you what, man, I thought that the thing that I'm going to find really fascinating that I'm going to be watching in this match is in that Ring of Honor match, it was super fucking Memphis. Right? Yeah. They did everything. They had the bear come out. They had Brandy. Brandy took a gnarly ass bump through a table. The Young Bucks came out. Flip came out. Yeah. Right? Like they did everything. The bits in that match. And I don't think that New Japan books like that.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of approximate that, and whether they go the route of the Golden Lovers Young Bucks match that was like really like I don't know, like very melodramatic, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite thing. But like they could go that route, or they could just have a straight match, and that would be fascinating too. I'm really see what these two guys do, because I doubt it will be similar to what they did in Ring of Honor.
So you don't think that we're going to see an appearance by either of Cody's bear mascots?
No, I would be very shocked.
Yeah.
I would be very, very shocked if that happened.
Although I would love it if they did come out and they just solemnly kind of stood by the ring, like a traditional New Japan second.
Like they were his seconds.
Yeah,
right.
Like they just sat there with a towel, like getting excited for various developments in the match. That would be exciting for me personally.
All right, I have a question for you guys. Who do you think is more likely to make an appearance who's not on this card out of anybody else? Like, I think the most likely is Kota Ibushi makes an appearance at some point during this, like you mentioned, Golden Lover stuff. And then I think Chris Jericho could still come out and say something at some point. I don't think he, get involved in some way. I don't know exactly like how much he would want to do that, because, he's been saying all this stuff about he's not going to be on these American shows.
Well, I mean, but that's the quickest way to know that Chris Jericho is working is if he's talking about something.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. When Jericho says something like that, I go, okay, so you'll be there. I don't
think Jericho will be there. It's not because of anything he said. It's not because any like Meltzer reports on like his deal or his like handshake deal with WWE or anything like that. Yeah. It's based strictly on the fact that they've sold like a third of the tickets. And if they announced Jericho's name, they would sell out the rest of them.
Sell more. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know. Like I know that there is a value in surprises and big moments, but the point of wrestling is to sell tickets and to put asses in seats. So I don't know. I don't see Jericho showing up. I could see Ibushi, but I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get any surprise.
Yeah,
because if you're gonna get people all the way out here, you'd probably just put them in.
Well,
it's expensive and a hassle to bring them here, especially again as close to the G1 as they are.
To that point, though, if you were to look at something that was more economical, and as of now, we don't know if we're gonna get a return match between Naito and Jericho. But at some point, Jericho has to get into some kind of feud since they put the title on him, right?
Well, and they teased Evil after that match.
So I mean, like, I would not be shocked if there is a Jericho run and it is a code breaker to somebody to set up the next thing going forward, but.
I would shit my pants.
Yeah,
so thrilled.
I mean, look, Evil and Sonata are in a match against the Young Bucks. If you have him come in and code breaker Evil and that turns into the Young Bucks winning, then okay, that forwards that feud, right? So
for sure,
yeah,
there's stuff. It could happen.
Who knows?
I also have a couple quick things to reiterate after we got to them earlier. Apparently, the numbers are 4,500 tickets sold, but 1,000 of those tickets are not actually sold necessarily. They are held for people who are part of the New Japan something club. I guess, who like they just want to make sure that they have tickets if they decide to buy them. So the numbers are a little bit fudged right now. We don't really know exactly where we're at.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff on StubHub and things too.
Sure. And the other weird little piece of little tidbit on the Cow Palace It was built in 41, or opened in 41. Still open today. Candlestick Park opened in 56 and gone.
Yeah, I don't know if there's many older facilities.
Yeah, like Candlestick Park was a dump of a place.
Yeah.
And it is gone, destroyed, gone forever. Cow Palace still there.
I love it. I'm soaked. I'm really excited to feel that history in my bones when I'm walking through that place.
Dude, it's going to be great. Real quick, Aubrey, where do you want to direct people's eyes? I know you got the book coming out later this year. Is there anything else that you want to get out before we chat about that for a second?
Yeah, man. Wait, am I doing my social media plugs or what am I doing now?
Do your social media plugs, whatever you want to plug.
Aubrey Sitterson on everything. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Those are the ones I use. I mostly use Twitter. It's at Aubrey Sitterson. If you don't do the social media, I'm actually I'm pretty darn good at keeping my website up to date, and that's just AubreySitterson.com. It's AubreySitterson.com. It's got links to preview pages of the book that I guess we're going to talk about, my social media, everything I've got going on. You can find there.
So let's talk about the book. It comes out when?
October 2nd. It's available for pre-order right now, though. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you have an independent local bookstore, go in, give them a call, let them know. That stuff's really helpful because it lets them know that there's going to be a demand. So they order not just one for you, but a couple more for the shelves as well. Also, very soon, and once it's available, I'll push it out on my social media. I'll have the order code so that you can go into a local comic book shop.
Oh, great.
For you too. We don't have the codes yet just because the differences in how the industries work, but that'll be coming very soon.
Give people the quick pitch on what they will find when they buy the book in October.
It is a hardcore, I have to read it because it's long, a hardcore, high-flying, no-holds-barred history of the one true sport. It is something that does not exist in any medium right now. It is a full, comprehensive history of not just one promotion, not just one wrestler, not just one era, not just one country, but all of professional wrestling. We start with cavemen fighting over mammoths. We cover the carnival days. We cover the founding of the NWA. Then the Gold Dust Trio, which is prior to that even.
Yeah.
Then we hop over. We have individual chapters on Lucha Libre, on Japanese wrestling, and on British wrestling before we come back and then, of course, cover the 80s boom, the golden age in America, the Attitude Era and Monday Night Wars in the 90s, and then the present. So I finished writing it about a year and a half ago, and I kept it as up-to-date as I could without getting too specific on stuff that, who knows, with the benefit of hindsight might not be important anymore, which is a real challenge. But yeah, man, it is a full history, and it was a inordinate amount of research. It was way more difficult to write than I had anticipated because it's the first nonfiction stuff that I've written.
Nice.
It's a lot more I was arrogant coming into it because I thought it would be just like writing G.I. Joe characters shooting lasers at monsters and stuff. Yeah. It's a little bit harder if you can imagine.
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you what, the good news is, Aubrey, that at least wrestling fans won't be fussy if you don't get something right about the history of the business.
They're an easygoing bunch.
Yeah.
No, man, I was really scared of that. So I actually had noted wrestling expert, former wrestler, promoter, commentator, announcer, Excalibur from PWG.
Oh, great.
Yeah, man, I had Excalibur read an early version of the script. I had other readers too, but he was the big one. I had him read an early version of the script, and he gave me notes and some things I got wrong, some things that I was, positioning maybe like a little incorrectly, or that implied things or whatever. So I took great pains to get this right because it's important to me, and like I said, it hasn't existed before. But I am already bracing myself for the angry tweets that I'm going to get that are, I can't believe you didn't include blank, my favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
Right. Because the fact of the matter is it's only 170 pages, which is a lot. That's big for a graphic novel. And there's 5 panels on every page, and we crammed stuff in there. But we just simply couldn't fit everybody in, unfortunately, So I guarantee that you will read it and you will learn something and you will have a blast and you will be fascinated and you'll fall even more in love with wrestling. But I also guarantee that you will be angry that I left something out because I simply couldn't fit everything in there.
Well, tell you what, if you're pissed off, direct all of your rage to your enthusiasm for a sequel where Aubrey will ensure that your favorite will be covered in excruciating detail.
I've already started pitching my editor on that. I was like, listen, man, we got to do an addendum. I've just got this list of stories they couldn't fit in. Because that was the other thing too, man. Like I don't like books like this typically.
Yeah.
I think that, nonfiction comic books, especially when they cover like a big topic like this, they usually veer into anecdote, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of being a story, it's just a list of things that happened, right? And so that was one of my big priorities when I started breaking this thing down, is to actually find the narrative arc of the history of wrestling, right?
Yeah.
And what that means is that there were things that, while important for what they were and interesting, didn't necessarily fit into that narrative arc. And that's, to my mind, like that's the art of doing nonfiction, right? It's cutting, it's editing, it's choosing what you're going to portray. If you're a documentarian, you don't just film everything and throw it on the screen. You cut and you edit and you choose things to create the narrative and to make it as clear and compelling for your audience as possible. And that's what myself and my co-creator Chris Moreno did on this. And I'm sorry, I know I'm babbling, but
no. Don't worry. And if I'm cutting you short, it's only because I know we're gonna have you back on closer to the release so we can talk all about it. I gotta say,
Chris Moreno is a genius. He's a name that even if you're a comic book fan, you might not be familiar with yet. But once you see this book, once you see his skill with caricature and period and humor and bringing life to what can sometimes be a little bit dry when we're talking about political maneuverings with Ted Turner or whatever.
Yeah.
He's going to be your new favorite comic book artist. 100%.
Look, if you have not checked him out at Aubrey Sitterson on Twitter, please do it. There's a ton of great art and panels from the book that he's put up there. I love the style of it, and I love just how mythologized it is. I think that's and one of Aubrey's other projects is Scald, a oral history, and that not that he is saying it. It is a fiction story, but it is him reciting it, and I know that kind of a mythological framing is something that you play around a lot with this sword and sandals fantasy stuff, and it's perfect, exactly what I would expect from your lens. So I think everybody should go pre-order it right now. One last thing before we get out of here. It is our favorite thing to do on this show. Aubrey, this might be up your alley. Friend of ours, friend of the show here, Trey Warren, he's an actual really good musician. However, every once in a while, he likes to get really baked and try in seconds, like very quickly, in no way representative of his actual skill, to learn wrestling themes on a melodica. He then sends us them in massive batches, and we try to guess what shitty wrestling theme he has cooked up for us on melodica. This was last week's.
I have no idea. I'm really embarrassed, but I have no idea. What is it?
It's fine. It's fine. That is Brother Love's theme.
Oh,
Jesus. Okay.
Listen, sometimes he gets close, sometimes he doesn't. There's no.
I mean, now that you say it, it totally makes sense. But yeah, I was nowhere near that.
I would be lying if I said I remembered what Brother Love's theme song sounded like. Also, so maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
That's got that one.
The only reason,
I feel like Justin, you might have a better chance of getting that one since you're such a fan of his show, right?
Well, the only reason, because they play his theme as the outro music on the Something to Wrestle With podcast. That would be the only reason why I would know it, though. To be fair, Trey Warren in the chat room right now does point out, takes exception that I say he gets baked and records these. He says, point of order, he gets whiskey drunk first. Okay, so as long as we are doing that,
drunk.
This is this week's Shitty Melodica cover. One more time. If you think that you know the answer to that, go ahead and send me a tweet at Justin R. Young and send Dills a tweet too at Willie Dills on Twitter. Any guesses?
At Aubrey Sitterson too, because I have no idea what it is. I need someone to tell me.
This one, I will say, I'm looking at the answer now. It is a current act. A current act. But we will.
I've gotten a technique to these, which is take the rhythm of the notes and then try to just apply it to electric guitar, right? To a chunky electric guitar. That's the thing. So yeah, I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. The only problem is that is every wrestler's theme from 1991 on.
Yeah.
And they were all by Saliva.
Yes. All right, real quick, Willie. What do you got coming up this week?
Not a lot, man. I'm going to be in San Francisco from Thursday through Tuesday. So, yeah, you probably won't see. I'll try to slip in some live streaming and stuff. I want to start making sure I press that button to go live more often because it's a struggle when you're constantly on the move. And so live streams, we can pepper those in there to kind of keep things going on. So yeah, maybe we'll do some stuff from Hood Slam or something. Maybe we can do some stuff. We can show everybody the beautiful neighborhoods surrounding
the warehouses of Oakland. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. No, it'll be a blast.
It's actually right up the road from the Cow Palace. Maybe the actual worst neighborhood in all of San Francisco that nobody knows is even there. I had a friend who grew up there. When I used to go pick him up and drop him off, it was like entering and exiting Sarajevo or something like that. It was like you going into a war zone every single freaking time.
Well,
and yeah.
Look forward to us revealing that hidden gem on Willie's
I'm
Twitch
sure
stream.
It'd be great. We should definitely walk into that with a selfie stick and a phone live recording.
Seems
that
legit.
I think would go over great in that neighborhood.
All right, so twitch.tv/Willie Dills is where
twitch.tv/Willie Dills
and
find
all
Willie
of that
Dills on Twitter.
And maybe some stuff out here. I'll tell you what. Maybe we should go live from the parking lot of New Japan. I feel like that would be the way to go. We'll run into Aubrey. We'll run into all of our friends. It'll be.
I mean, aren't we planning to do some run-ins? Like we're gonna do a run-in on another podcast and stuff. So like we'll be there early enough to.
We'll be there.
Have some time to kill. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right, everybody, that about wraps it up. Again, Justin Robert Young is me, but you can find me on Twitter, Justin R. Young, as well as where we stream this show, twitch.tv/Justin R. Young. That about wraps it up for Aubrey Sitterson, Willie Dills, and myself. This is 1-900 Wrestling.
I want you to call me for all of wrestling.
Be dialing!
I've been around in wrestling for 35 years, and nobody knows wrestling like me. Remember the number 1-900 Wrestling.
Stupid idiots.
They call me
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.